everybody. We are here with the WGASC Advisory Committee members, and today we are going to be talking to you about how to use Zoom, how to set up your classroom, and how to have a successful color guard rehearsal on Zoom. So I'm going to let these two wonderful people introduce themselves, and then we'll get talking about how to use Zoom.
Hi, my name is Sarah Abdulal. I am from San Diego, California. I teach a couple color guards out here, and I'm very excited to help you guys out with this.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Hector Brambilla. I am native to Los Angeles, but I primarily teach in Orange County. It's been kind of a rough couple months for everyone, so we're here to kind of help out a little bit in any way that we can of how to help your students virtually now that our lives have been transitioned to a whole new platform. So hopefully we can help out as much as possible.
And I'm Angela, and I teach at El Dorado. And so we're just here to help you today with Zoom. So we kind of came up with 10 different things that we think would be essential to building your classroom to be successful. So you guys ready? Our first one is goals for the year. You want to set some goals for the year. So what have you guys done to set some goals as we're in this kind of pandemic, crazy time? We would normally be setting goals for maybe marching band or field season. What are you doing now that's helping you set those?
I've actually came up with like 3 things that have been my main focus. So the first one has been maintaining relationships with the members and making sure that they maintain relationships with each other. The second one has been maintaining our skill level and our technique and making sure that, you know, we're having that education. And then the last one has been just making them feel like they have something to look forward to, like they have pride for their programs. So based on that, that's kind of where I went with like how to put together what our goals overall were going to be.
Yeah, I think it's super important during these times to really try to fine tune what your goal is for your program specifically, because what might work for me might be different than what works for Angela or Sarah. And depending on the size of your program and just the grade level of your students and what you're pretty much allowed to do within your district, I think really start there and then maybe fine tune it to what the program will be able to, I guess, be allowed to do through this new virtual platform. So I think, yeah, for me, it's been the same like what Sarah's saying, trying to keep the students engaged, let them want to be at rehearsal and actually show up for these Zoom classrooms, because it's hard, you know, for sometimes these students to just be there when the world is telling them not to be there, and to focus on so much other maybe negativity around them. But yeah, I think growing the program, keeping it moving forward, and keeping the students engaged and in good spirits, I think we can be a beacon within the craziness of something, of a little bit of normality, I guess.
Yeah, I think definitely it's been, for me personally, it's been a little bit of a struggle. You know, how do I go from this super competitive thing to like transition, and how do I adjust the kids to those expectations? And I think some kids are really good at that adjustment and other kids aren't. And so just being, keeping an eye out. I know the meeting that we had with WGSC the other day with Shirley was so awesome and kind of like an eye-opening, like I really need to go back and rethink some of these. And so that afternoon I called some of the students and just said like, hey, how are you doing? I've noticed, you know, you're kind of a little less active in color guard. You can just tell in their personalities and how they're contributing. And they said, wow, like, you know, I thank you for reaching out. I didn't know that anyone was noticing that I've been struggling. So I like what you said about like keeping those relationships. And sometimes that can be hard because we are virtual. It's, you know, a lot of times we're building those relationships, you know, in person, and that is definitely a difference. So setting up goals. Sarah, I love those goals. I thought those were really, really wonderful tips. And I'll probably use them myself, because sometimes I feel like I'm floundering. I'm just like a fish out of water. I don't know how to function without competition. Like, what do you mean we don't compete?
Yeah. And I think we're all on that same page. This is brand new. You know, this has not been done before, and even instructors that have done it for a while. Like, you're used to your little quirks and things that you do at rehearsal that help out every day, but this is just brand new.
Well, I think too, like we're so used to the goal being placing or, you know, what the championships, and that's not happening right now. So finding any other type of goal like is super important, and it'll probably be better for all of us in the future too.
Definitely. The second thing that we think would be great for everybody to know how to do is just how to use Zoom. So what are some of the things that you guys have discovered in creating your own Zooms for your classrooms?
Definitely just making sure that we have a goal like we talked about for number one, and then setting the Zoom up to achieve that goal. So if we're dancing or stretching, like knowing how I need to put my camera, all that stuff. And then making sure I don't like to send out the links until right before, just so the only kids that get it are the kids that need it. So no one else is logging on or anything like that. And then just double checking that all the settings are where they need to be. And familiarizing yourself with how Zoom actually works if you haven't used it. There's a lot of YouTube links that can help you with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think something that has helped just for security, because I know a lot of districts have the concern with Zoom, and I know some districts are even restricting Zoom from being used. Something I do is I make sure that the waiting room is active. So when a student tries to log in, I make sure that I tell the students, this is what your name needs to be. So I tell them, it needs to be your full name, and then I tell them a space, a dash, a space, and then your grade level. So that I know for some reason somebody else is trying to log in and maybe even use their name, I know that it's not them. So a couple times I've had parents trying to log in where maybe they have a question or something, and with our Zoom rehearsal, it is Zoom rehearsal, so I make sure that the people that are there are supposed to be there. So just little tricks like that that might maybe make your administration or your band director feel a little bit more confident in your rehearsal, and that you are really keeping the students' safety as priority.
Yeah, that's so smart. I think there are a couple of things too to add that maybe you don't know necessarily. Like we can't record our students and then make it public. So it might be something that you could share within just your group, but it's certainly not something that you could put on your website or, put on something that's like that. So definitely be careful of that. Know all your settings, and you can practice with it, like get some friends and maybe do a Zoom where you practice how to use a breakout room or how to turn the breakout room section on or off, and what can you limit your participants to be able to do. Do you want them, like Hector said, do you want them to be in a waiting room? I definitely utilize that function. Maybe you don't want them to screen share. Maybe you do. Maybe you have some sort of virtual bonding that you're going to do that you want them to do that. Maybe you only turn it on for that moment. So there's so many options, I think, in Zoom that's kind of great. It offers so many different things than maybe some other applications like Google Meets or something else. That I use Zoom too. We've been enjoying it.
What are some hacks that maybe you guys have been using that might really be working for you during your rehearsals?
Sarah?
I think for me, I definitely have been using a lot of like the settings. Like I've been like really familiarizing myself with the settings. And so I knew, cause like, I think the first time I did it, I just logged on and I was like, okay, and then things were happening that, maybe need to not happen. So I definitely YouTube with my friend when that all happened. And then for me, the sharing the screen and stuff, like it's been really helpful with that. Like my plan is when school starts to do Movie Monday. And so every Monday we're going to watch like different videos of other color guards and talk about it and stuff like that. So I think the fact that you can share your screen and you have those things is helpful. And then also with the shared content with like the whiteboard, like some of my guards, what we've done is we played like, Pictionary and stuff, and like, do like the draw things and stuff. But it was, what they did is they gave me the word and I drew it. So I knew that it wasn't going to be an issue of anything, that shouldn't be on there. They're all good kids, but you never know. So I would have the words and then I would draw and then they would guess and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff on there that you can use for not just teaching, but to have what we were talking about earlier, the bonding aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
We definitely utilize the breakout rooms quite frequently. Like, for instance, if I am teaching the group and say there's one student that's kind of falling far behind, maybe they didn't attend a few rehearsals, or maybe they're newer, I might put them in a breakout room with another coach or a captain who can help, just like we would do, in normal settings. We would send them with a captain to the side and, like, okay, this is how the hands go for this part. And I think that helps develop their relationship with each other, because they are able to talk to one another. I know one thing earlier on is I was talking to some of the students who we'd been on Zoom for like a month and a half maybe for rehearsal, and the kids were like, yeah, I don't know any of the new kids. And I was like, oh my gosh, they don't even know what they look like, because they're just in their own square spinning away by themselves. And so that was the moment I thought, okay, I need to put them in breakout rooms and like let them teach each other just like we would do in a normal rehearsal setting. And definitely that seemed to help for sure. But yeah, so with Zoom, one of the things that you're going to want to know is the different types of Zoom things that are offered. One Zoom offer is free, but it's only 45 minutes, right? So if you're going to choose that, you may have to log off rehearsal. Maybe that's how long your rehearsal is. Maybe you only do 40 minutes a day or something like that. Another option is for you to purchase it. But I know Sarah and I talked about, maybe your band director has an account, or maybe you can get a school account because you're a coach and they may be able to. So with El Dorado, I was able to get my own district email. That was like very, very helpful, so, and those are generally free right now, and your district may have purchased some for you to be able to utilize. So just talking to your band director, and there's a lot of different host features. We're going to do a video after this that you'll be able to use on YouTube for just kind of like a how to use Zoom, all the features and stuff. So stay tuned for that. All right, you guys ready for the third one? Set expectations. This is important. We need to set our expectations for our students and for ourselves. And it kind of goes right into what we were talking about, with waiting rooms and things. So what are some of your experiences, and what would you guys recommend for expectations on Zoom?
I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but definitely like keep them low and then build from there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always am like, okay, by this day, my freshmen should be able to do this and they should know this, but this is a completely different outlook and setting that we're using right now. And for me, it was like, okay, if I can make sure that they know what the parts of the flag are and they understand their bodies. Like, I've been definitely focusing on movement more than I ever have, because on Zoom it is significantly easier to do that than equipment. But definitely, I think, be realistic about what you're asking them to do, and find out what they're able to do as well, so that what those expectations can be. Like, if that they're not going to be able to necessarily go outside all the time, maybe them learning drop spins is not high on your priority list right now, but understanding their body is. So things like that.
I think it's really important to remember that during these times that we are educators and not just the coach of a team, and that the most important thing is to keep the students engaged and want to be in the classroom. And I think that, a lot of, I think you guys were talking about, we're so used to it being a competition every Saturday. We're so used to the long rehearsals that lead into the really long rehearsal on Saturday that leads to the show, that leads to the awards, and you get home really late and you're just going to do it again the next week. And that now that we're not there, you really need to analyze what your program really needs. And right now, I think the most important thing is to keep the program alive and keep the program, I'm going to use the word flourishing, because I think that during these times, you can still flourish and your students can still learn and the program can still grow just a little differently. So I think keeping the students engaged in the rehearsal, and just sometimes the goal is that there's a smile on their face, and the goal is that they showed up and they have set up their Zoom account and the name is correct on their little Brady Bunch box. And I think the goals just need to be very realistic, like Sarah said, and then build upon that. Because right now, the goal is probably not for the whole ensemble to be spinning together. Like, good luck. Yeah. Like, it just is not realistic. But the fact that maybe that they understand the skill behind it, I think that's going to be something that is just means a lot right now virtually.
For me, expectations, I think the way I think about it is a little bit more logistical. Like, okay, I still expect you to log in on time. So making sure, I know the first rehearsal we had, like kids weren't wearing shoes. I was like, would you spin at rehearsal without shoes? Put your shoes on. Like, come on, you guys. These are basics here. So like there are certain things that you maybe wouldn't have thought about prior, because they would just be like, well, of course I wore shoes to school, like I drove to school and then I had shoes on. So, at the beginning of every rehearsal, I say, okay, show me your water. Just make sure, like, are you drinking water? I don't know, because I can't check on you. So just silly, not silly things, but just important things that we might overlook or take for granted when we're in person, I think, has been something. Do you want their cameras on? Do you want them on the whole time? Do you want them to stay on mute? Do you not want them to stay on mute? What happens if I get logged out? And just setting those kinds of expectations of like, okay, also these are important steps for you to take, because maybe if they don't know that they're supposed to log in, they're like, oh, cool, free pass, see ya, or if my account freezes. I know one time I'm the host and I was frozen. I was the only person moving. Everyone else was frozen, so I knew they all saw me frozen. So, I had another instructor to be like, okay, well, rehearsal's dismissed. We were at the end of it anyway, but, just what are you going to do at that point? So, do you guys have any other expectations that maybe we haven't talked about, like that are like logistical things that we should tell people about?
I think just going back to what you were saying, Angela, I think having all those expectations are great, but also making sure you share them with your students early so that you're establishing a new culture. Because we're used to walking into the room, and like for us, like the captains have an organized block that we'll stretch in. So now that we don't have kind of like the little protocols of the everyday, what is the new protocol of your Zoom rehearsal and your Zoom session? So definitely, establishing it yourself, if you need to write it down and make sure that you're being very clear and consistent with your students so that they know that every single day, the expectation is the same, so that the quality of what you're doing on a daily doesn't have to be renewed every single time you meet them. So just really setting that expectation really clear and being really consistent with it. Because if not, you're going to give the students an inch and you're not there to stop them from taking the mile, so they're going to take it as much as they can, especially now. So just really holding them accountable to the expectation of the rehearsal.
I think too, just a lot of the expectations we'll have are probably what we had in person. And like I was saying, just make sure you tell them. Don't be afraid to just have a Zoom meeting where you're not going to necessarily work. You're just going to sit down and say, okay, these are the rules. This is how this is going to work. These are my goals. Everything we've been talking about up till now applies to all that stuff. And I think it'll run a lot smoother if you do so.
Definitely. That seems like a good plan. And be upfront and honest and communicate them. It sounds like you'll be set up better.
Yes.
And then how do we pace our rehearsals now that we're on Zoom? How long do you guys, have a rehearsal for, and what should we expect from the kids as far as like how much can they handle,
I think definitely every school is going to be different. So knowing your team and what works best for them is going to be really important with this. And if you haven't done any Zooms, maybe start small and work your way up. I think the kids that have done them for a little bit now are a lot better with long periods of time and things like that. I definitely, once we've hit like an hour or so, I try to give a break or, change up what we're doing a little bit, just because, even me, like my neck, everything just hurts from just like looking at a computer screen all the time, So just being aware of that, and maybe the time of day it is as well. They're at home, maybe some of them, I think we had talked about this earlier today before we recorded. But they might have siblings and their parents are at work, or they might have other things that need to go on. So I, just like we would normally, I would make sure you have a calendar, and they know ahead of time, this is when rehearsals are, this is when classes, et cetera, and then, okay, I'm going to need to give them a lunch break still, I'm going to need to give them a 15-minute break here, or we're going to do an hour each day, whatever works best for your kids.
Yeah, I think setting a really obvious schedule is going to help the students prepare themselves and their surroundings for the rehearsal. And it's going to help you kind of reach those daily goals that you have. So I know, like, for me, like, if I'm starting a rehearsal in the morning, I know that, they're probably going to be able to be outside maybe early when the sun is not that bad. So maybe we're going to try to focus on maybe equipment from 10 to 11 and then go on a little bit of a break. And then when it starts getting a little bit hotter, you're going to go inside, give them the break, tell them that during that time they're able to move inside or whatever. And then you're going to do movement after. So I think really setting up, depending on what time of the day it is and what the goal is for that week, I think, setting your schedule according to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we've been rehearsing a little later in the evening. First, Jen and I have usually like a 9 to 5 kind of job, so it helps us get home from work and kind of those things. But it is a little bit cooler. So yeah, I think that's a great piece, like either maybe morning or evening to help with the heat of the day, especially like August, September, we know here in California is so hot. And so just being able to set that up for your class is really important. And I like what you said about, knowing, you having that set calendar. So everybody knows this is the day and the time that we rehearse. Even though at this point we're having to be super flexible, maybe at some point we're going to get to go back in person and that might have to change. And I think one key thing for all of us is to be adaptable. We kind of just have to be mold into these different ways that we're going to be able to do things. For sure. I know that I think giving them a break is a great, something to do. We've been trying to say like, okay, from this time to this time we're doing movement, and this time to this time we're doing equipment, and then we have this little break in the middle. Maybe you start the day with an activity that helps them get to connect with one another, so you pace it out a little differently, and maybe you're ending with something like that as well, just so they can kind of reconnect with one another and not think like, oh, I just stared at my screen while I spun off for the last couple of hours or something, for sure. And then that kind of leads into the agenda for the day, right? So probably most of us have set some sort of agenda for each rehearsal. What are you guys doing to set an agenda? And are you sharing those agendas with the kids, or how is that working for you?
For me, what I do is whenever I post like their Zoom link, it'll say what the agenda is for the day. So from this time to this time is like, intros. I've actually been starting every Zoom with an icebreaker question. So I always give like 10 minutes to like, okay, this is the plan and here's our fun question for the day, and everyone answers. And then from there, depending on what we're working on, we're going to stretch from this time to this time. Then we're going to, work on a dance routine, or we're going to work on center, depending on what the day is. So I always try to post it so they're prepared and they know what they need. If we're going to spin today, okay, I need to be outside. I'm getting my flag. I'm going to need to do this. We're dancing, some kids can't, unfortunately, because of their space. But like if we're doing like an across the floor of some sort, they're going to need more room. And then along with that, also, again, just knowing what your kids can and can't do will help you come up with that agenda. As I was starting to notice that every kid is having different situations, I came up with like a little survey that I sent out, and it was like, do you have room to do across the floors? Do you have room to spin? Like, what is your situation? I have a kid who her parents don't want her jumping because they live in a second-story apartment. So she's not allowed to jump during dance class, you know what I mean? But I know that. And so I'm, okay, if you can't jump, this is this option. And then if you're doing the jumping exercise, this is what you're doing. So just having different options for those kids as well.
Yeah, for the last couple of weeks of rehearsal, like we just did a virtual band camp. What I did is I would post the Zoom link, and I posted a very general schedule. These hours we're going to do movement, these hours we're doing equipment, and these hours we're doing, whatever the schedule was for the week. But what I realized pretty early on is that what I thought the rehearsal was going to be was not what it actually ended up being. Something like what Angela was saying, you have to be really flexible. So what I put, like on Monday, it was very, very specific. You're going to be inside during this time. Make sure you prepare your jazz shoes, and if you need a yoga mat, or make sure that your camera is angled so that I can see your entire body on the floor. And then, you're going to be outside for the next hour, blah, 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 blah. But then what I realized is that the students are learning a little bit differently than in person. So then that following day, I had to adjust my schedule accordingly. So I really couldn't give too much information because it didn't end up being what I thought it was going to be. So I think, being very flexible with your schedule and make sure you're telling them, giving them information so that they can be fully engaged in the rehearsal, but being flexible with your expectations that you're not just trying to reach your goals, but you're really being realistic to what the students are able to do.
Yeah, I think especially at first, when you're first starting your Zoom rehearsal with your students, it's going to take more time than it would normally. And one thing we've been working on is it's really hard for them to learn choreography via Zoom. I mean, first of all, it's mirrored, so it's a little different. So you may want to set aside time for you to record the information that you're doing and then be able to post it wherever you guys are communicating. Our sixth thing that we think you should know about Zoom is going to be know how to use your space, both for students and for you as the instructor. So there are many ways to adjust how you want to do it. What are some things that you guys have been telling your students, and what are some things you guys have been doing yourself to make it the best possible setup for yourself?
So for me, I'm in, a small apartment and I don't have a lot of space. So I'm lucky that I was cleared to be able to actually go to my band room and teach from there. So I actually had some more room. I haven't done this, but I know some other instructors have. They purchased like a white sheet and they made themselves like a background just so that nothing was in the way. Do you know what I mean? So like you could really see what was going on. So things like that. And then I definitely have had my share of like playing around with like camera angles and stuff to make sure you can see like, okay, if we're doing center, I want to make sure like if we're doing tandis, they can see my feet. So, putting the video in a way where they can really focus on that, as well as if we're stretching, okay, maybe the camera needs to be turned and stuff like that.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of an interesting setup. What I try to do is I make sure that my schedule allows for me to set up my, I'm going to call it my classroom way in advance before the students show up. So what I do is I take everything into my living room. I have a laptop that I use that has a camera, but I did buy a separate webcam just to be able to put the webcam on top of my TV in my living room. And then I cast everything from my laptop on my TV. So I'm able to step back and see the students on the big screen and be able to yell out comments from where I am instead of having to do this kind of zoom in thing that we all, we are back there and the students are just, what? You have to like run up to the camera and just get really in their face and like give them a comment. So I feel like that's been helping. I know that it's kind of a hassle just because, for us that don't have a studio in our house, you have to kind of rearrange your situation. So like for me, I have to move furniture around to make sure that I'm able to, do things and not just tell them. I know for me at rehearsal, there's times where, the students know the way I teach, so I can tell them something and they'll be able to do it. But now that we, are not in person and we have some, new members that we have to think about, we're having to show things more, so like Sarah said, if we're doing movement, make sure you tell your students a little bit more of, what you're going to be focusing on at that time so they can adjust their cameras accordingly. But I think just for everyone, just take the time to set up your classroom with enough space and focus that the rehearsal is going to be worth it.
I know one thing that helped me is adjusting. So I have a very dark couch and I pretty much do not wear anything but black leggings. And so the dark couch and my black leggings, Jen was like, can you wear white pants or something? I'm like, I don't own those. But what I could do is I can put a blanket on my couch that's like white or gray or something lighter so you can see the difference, because it didn't seem to matter how close I got the camera to my body, like it was still difficult for the kids to see me. So that was one thing that we tried for sure to help make that an adjustment in setting that stuff up. But a lot of our students don't have space. Maybe they are outside, maybe they're between their bed and their dresser and there's just not a lot of space. So I know I've recommended some students, like maybe you do have to move your furniture around. Maybe you have to think about just a different way of approaching it. You may want to check your lighting in your home. Maybe it's too dark. Maybe you need to turn on a light. Maybe you need to close the blinds so that your camera can adjust to the lighting. There's all kinds of different things. You'll definitely have to play with it. It's an individual by individual basis. I know I've had a student like, it is so dark in your room. Can you please turn on a light? I can't see you. So, those are all different kinds of things that you can do to help set up your space and to know how to use it for everyone. You guys have anything else you want to add for helping everybody set their space up?
It's not necessarily like the space, but I'll just be aware of all the sounds too. Like Zoom picks up so many things, and I would definitely as soon as we start teaching, I'm like, okay, I'm muting everybody, and I mute all the kids because, one of my first meetings, like the lawnmower was going on outside, like they were doing something, and then we heard that, and then like just everything. So I think being aware of the sounds around too, like maybe don't have other things on, try to get somewhere that's quiet so they can hear you, because it can get difficult.
And I think when you're teaching, just make sure that people in your house know that you're teaching, because we're now going into non-summer rehearsals, and you don't know if for some people, the band director might be sitting into their rehearsal, because now it's like a class period. Make sure that, if you live with either a boyfriend or roommates or a husband or a wife or just your family, make sure that you're not going to have, your dad pop out of the restroom without a shirt on because they just didn't know you were teaching. So make sure that you're kind of taking care of yourself.
Yes, letting everyone around you know what's going on. Very important, for sure. Okay, number 8. We were talking about audio timing. How are we going to get our students to dance or spin with us? Is it possible? If so, how?
It's definitely difficult. I started, when I first started noticing it was an issue with like the music and the audio, because like there was a delay when teaching stuff. I was like, okay, we're not, we're gonna break this down with just counts and they're gonna follow along with me. But when we were talking about expectations, this one is definitely one that you want to be very realistic with. Drop spins being clean together is not high on my priority list. I don't recommend it because it will make you crazy, especially if you're all about technique like I am. So with the audio, just be aware, like if you're like, wow, they really don't understand this tempo, it might not be that. It really is the delay and things like that. And focus on the fact that they're doing it correctly, not necessarily maybe on the right count. And then I think Angela said this earlier, like some of the stuff, like if it's a routine and stuff, like we'll teach it, but then we'll also provide a video and like, hey, this is where it is in the song, so that they can find it. And it's a little bit easier for them, and they can really feel like what the music was at this part in the choreography and stuff, because it doesn't always look and feel that way on Zoom live.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest struggle. Just we're so used to, the metronome going off and, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it just is not that anymore. I think the minute that you give it up in your head is the minute that your rehearsals start going a lot better for you. So I think being realistic in your expectations for the day, and just finding little like hacks that might work for you. I know, like for me, my laptop that I have was not able to pick up both music and sound. Yeah, like me talking, sorry, both music and like me speaking to the students. So I had to like get a different microphone that was better quality, that would be able to pick up both the music and me shouting the comments over the music. Something that did help me, that I'm lucky enough to work with somebody else at every program that I'm at. And there are times that I will play music, but because the lag is so bad for me, I can't really focus on very many comments. So the other person that is working with me, I'll ask her to give more comments, and maybe I just focus on general bigger picture things. And then we switch, she'll play the music and then I'll be able to give more comments because the timing won't be as bad on that side. So I think just trying to find little ways of being creative to try to get that lag as tight as possible, but you just have to give it up. Like it is what it is, and just be happy that they showed up and the flags are spinning up and down. That's an achievement.
Yes.
For music, one thing I noticed, we tried different things. Like I had like a boombox, and I was like, I have to make this music really loud so they hear it. And actually what I found is when I play the music just from my phone, like they actually could hear that better than when I had it on like a big speaker. So like I would use Zoom on my computer or iPad, and then I would use my iPhone and just play the music like that and just kind of set it next to me. And they were able to hear that. The kids said they were able to hear that better than when I actually put it on like a speaker.
Yeah, we've definitely been doing, when we're trying to play something, I'll say, okay, someone else count it who's not me, because what I hear, what you hear are different. And so, if it's somebody else counting it in, it has helped. I can't say that they're like spinning super great together. But one thing that you could do to see if they know how to spin on time is to have them create a video with the music, or to, a metronome, and then you would know, like, okay, yes, they do understand time. This is just a Zoom issue and not an actual like member instruction issue, So that is something that you could try. But Hector, something you said kind of brings us to use of instructors. And definitely, if you're lucky enough to have them and how to use them, and if you are unfortunate and you're only like, some people are only getting to rehearse by themselves right now, like what can you do to help with only being, kind of by yourselves after you've been maybe with a bigger staff before? So what are you guys doing? Are you guys each lucky enough to have help right now?
I have, so I'm at 3 schools, and so one of them I do have help, and then one I don't, and then one I do right now, but it's looking like it's going to go away soon, unfortunately. So basically, I've done a number of things for equipment to give them like real instruction. What we've done is I scheduled like 20-minute one-on-ones. Like I had like a little sign up. I was like, okay, whatever you're working on, like, today it's going to be rifle day. Sign up for a 20-minute one-on-one session, and I'll help you with whatever rifle skills you're working on. So I could really just, okay, show me what you're doing. No, this is how you need to fix it. And then using my leadership when I'm on my own has been very, very helpful, because they can demonstrate a lot of these exercises because they've been doing it for a while. With the groups I have, my staff, it's been super helpful because kind of like what Alex was saying, one of us will demonstrate and the other one will be scrolling through to give people corrections. And what we'll do is, as soon as we're done with the exercise, like we made it a habit to do each exercise twice. And this works too if you're by yourself. So we'll do it once, give information, and then do it again to apply the information, so that they're not necessarily like talking over everything. So I definitely recommend that. It's made it a lot easier. And then for video assignments, because there's 2 of us, it's made the workload a little bit easier. And okay, we're going to do a flag routine. Sarah has, the beginner intermediate version, and so-and-so has the advanced version. So there's something for all the kids, because I definitely think the older kids right now are like, they want to get challenged. They, especially because we're not having competition. I think that's one of the things I've heard them say a lot is like, I want to learn new tricks. I want to learn new stuff. I want to learn things that we normally wouldn't get to learn. So there's definitely opportunities in that.
Yeah, I think if you're lucky to have coworkers during this time, thank your band director, first of all. Thank your booster programs, because there's a lot of programs out there that have cut the staff by a lot. So just make sure that if they do keep someone, that you keep them for the future and their foreseeable future. So thank your your ups. But yeah, I think breaking up into smaller groups has helped a lot. Whether through using breakout rooms or just different sessions or different times of rehearsal, I know has really helped. So it could be a little overwhelming if you're by yourself. And I think using your captains if you are by yourself, or just the returners, has definitely helped me a lot. What I did is I broke the team off into separate groups. So it's a couple returners, a couple new members. So I feel like they help each other. I've played different games and activities where the teams are like head-to-head against each other. So it's like friendly competition where, who can do the most drop spins without blah, 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 or who, just little activities that'll kind of help the process move along, and you're kind of covering different bases, not just the skill, but also the family atmosphere, and just keeping the students engaged. But something that also helps on Zoom, you do have the option of turning off your camera and turning it on. So for some reason you are by yourself and you are just trying to look at the new members, what you can do is ask all of your returners to turn off their screen, and it'll actually bunch up the cameras that are still on. So you will be able to see just the new members on your screen, and not have to like toggle between a couple different windows, or just kind of seeing a bunch of faces staring up at you. So I know that has helped, just kind of tell the returners, come to the front, turn off your cameras. I'm just going to look at the new members, and even asking the returners, do you have any comments for your friends? Or do you have any comments for the people in your group? And that has definitely helped for me. And you could, obviously switch it. Then the new members can watch, and the returners can do their thing, and use them as an example, see what they did, and this is what we're looking for. So I think just using Zoom, if you're by yourself, the different applications and the different little options that it has, it is going to be your friend.
I
But
think that is so cool, Alex. Like the things that you can do, like to turn off those cameras so you can just isolate those few kids. Because sometimes I'm like, man, I just want to see these kids. How do I do that? And that is a really helpful tool. So I think I will definitely be trying that soon, very soon. All right, our number 9 thing to help you with Zoom is our virtual activities. I know you guys have mentioned several different really cool ideas for virtual activities. I'm excited to learn from you guys because I feel like I struggle with this one. So what have you been doing and how's it working?
So for me, the first thing that I'm definitely a planner and I like need inspiration from things. So I was like, okay, school's about to start. I need a plan. So I kind of came up with something for each day to help guide me. So movie Monday, technique Tuesday, like, you know, things like that, flexibility Friday, flag Friday, like stuff like that. So we're going to switch back and forth between those things to make it a little bit easier. I definitely think that I've talked to my kids and I asked them, like, especially the older kids, like, you know, we're not competing. What is it that you want? Like, what is something that's really important to you to help me as well? So some of the things that I've been doing has been like bonding games. I put together bingo cards for them to, like, you know, their goal was by the end of the week to get a full bingo, and I had different skills on the bingo card. I've done virtual scavenger hunts where they had to find, you know, go on YouTube and find a color guard that had a red costume, things like that to make them watch color guard. So just a lot of fun stuff that wasn't necessarily just always necessarily technique. It's super important, we're doing it, but I wanted to keep it fun and keep it like refreshing for them and find ways to educate them in a little bit different ways that we normally wouldn't get to do because of this. Like normally we're like, we have to learn the show, so we don't have time to watch, you know, color guard videos and talk about how great they are and, you know, maybe the history of your school. Like I want to do a history day where we just watch stuff from their school and things like that.
those are really good ideas. As you're talking, I'm here like, yeah, like listening and writing stuff down.
You know, me too. I was doing that virtual scavenger hunt is so cool. I'm definitely stealing that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, just creating little events for each day. Something that's very simple that we do when we were in person is we give a color to each day. So the students will wear like that colored top to the rehearsal. Or if it's like a theme day, you know, wear your favorite, you know, band shirts, or wear your, you know, it's a Disney day, everyone wears something Disney. So I feel like that's kind of exactly, you show with ears. Something very simple that you can do where it doesn't necessarily take away from the rehearsal, but it gives them like, oh, I just got these new ears on Amazon, because we all do. And I'm going to use them for this rehearsal. And it's something just kind of small but exciting for the students. What I try to do is every day play at least one video of something. So that day we've been focusing on movement, play a movement piece or a video that will show the skills that we were working on and then point them out when it happens. Because you're able to share your screen and still continue to talk through what's being played. And sometimes with the lag, your students won't be able to see the screen perfectly. But if you then share what you're watching in the comment box, they can take it onto their device and watch it later if need be. So I know that has helped with the lag. I use the captains a lot for games just because naturally I am a little bit more like that lag and those drop spins, like that's kind of like the bane right now. But I use the captains a lot for activities. So they'll play games where they do like a home scavenger hunt, where, you know, they'll put like in the comment box, they'll say, you have to go look for these things, ready, go. And they'll click, you know, send right when they say go. And the students are running around their house collecting, you know, a fork and a pillow and a cat and their mom. And they're just kind of running around with these things, like throwing them at the camera, just like, you know, to see who's going to get them first. And I feel like those little activities are great. Something that I also do is we do a lot of conditioning too, just because we're missing out on that aspect with not being in person. So I try to incorporate our conditioning with something that they find at their house. So like last week we did plies and like squats type thing with a pan. I said, go to your kitchen and get a pan, and we're gonna hold it this way, and you're gonna do your squats like this, or, you know, get different things for arm weights. And I feel like that's been just kind of silly, but you're still getting the point across, so it keeps the rehearsal kind of light. So just finding little activities that kind of work for you that you can use your space because now we're not at a school. Just lets them be a little bit more creative, I guess, and the students feel like that same energy of being in person.
Yeah, I think that those are all really awesome tools, you guys. I definitely will be using some of those. The ones I think that I've done are probably a little bit more simplistic. Like I'll get on and say, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And I'll go through every kid or something like that. One of the things you might want to consider is how you're going to take roll. So you may want to have everyone put their name in the chat. Or there is a report settings that you can run so you can know exactly what student logged in at what time and what time they logged out. So it could be a very important feature, especially when school gets started. You're going to want to know how long were they in that Zoom. Many schools are doing like block schedules and things like that, so making sure that they're getting their full hours. So that can also be very helpful. But virtual bonding, I think, is something that we all need to just get good at this point. I mean, it's just something that the kids are desperately needing. I mean, I think I desperately need it as well. So listening to you guys talk about some of those really cool ideas about, how you guys are doing it I think that's just really fun. But we've come to our 10th and our final thing that we want you to know about Zoom, and that is emergencies. What happened when an emergency happens? What do you need to know? How do you handle it? And do you have a plan to help yourself get out of that emergency? What have you guys been doing to kind of prevent those things from happening, or what would you do in the event that something did happen?
Thankfully, I haven't had anything too crazy. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but it can. The first thing I want to say is make sure you still have everyone's medical information, because just like when we were competing, like we're throwing things in the air, you guys, and you have freshmen who haven't even met you in person yet, and they're trying to throw these things in the air. So it's just really important that you still have that contact information and you know who to contact if something happens. For me, like my plan has been, like, if for some reason I ever did get hacked, I'm going to end the meeting right away. And I actually told the kids that, our very first Zoom, when we talked about rules and things like that, if for some reason anyone ever came on and started doing things, I'm going to end the meeting right away and just wait to hear from me if we're going to log back on a different link. I actually change the link pretty much every single time, and I give it to them literally the last minute to avoid that. Because what happens is sometimes parents or whoever, they kind of share it sometimes, and then somehow, some kid found it and they decided to come on and do something silly. And then making sure your settings are set correctly. I don't let the kids, I usually disable the chat unless we're doing something where they'll use it, as well as sharing content and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think if you're like me, and when we were in person, you would have the emergency contacts maybe in the band office or in your car or in your backpack, wherever you keep it. I think now that we're virtual, and if something comes up, you have less access to the students and being able to help them very fast. So I think having your emergency contacts easily accessible to you, whether that's like a file on your phone or on your computer, or for me, I'm very paper still on a lot of what I do. So I will literally sit here with my clipboard and my folders and have that very easily accessible to me, so that if something does happen, I know who to contact pretty quickly. And I think it's really important to always check the numbers that you have to make sure that they are up to date and current. Because if you had a student for 4 years, if maybe a mom changed their cell phone number, or maybe they moved to a different house, you want to make sure you're every single year and almost every single season asking for an updated sheet of information. So a parent, sometimes maybe they've switched jobs and maybe the primary email that they had was a work email, and now they're not getting the notifications of the rehearsals. So I think make sure that all of your emergency contacts are updated, and going back to scheduling, make sure that the schedule is being posted and that it's being shared with parents, I feel. Just because if the parent knows where the student is, if something does happen, they might be able to help out a little faster if they do need to do something in person. And then like Sarah said, if it's something virtual, like a lot of schools have kind of gone through this where they get hacked and somebody comes in and says something inappropriate or something. Just use different parts of the settings to make sure that does not happen. So just really get used to the Zoom classroom and the different functions that it has, and make sure that you're being safe virtually, but also, physically. You're tossing things in the air, you're dancing, so whether that means, ask your students to have a towel if they're going to be dancing on in their tile in their living room. If they're going to be outside, make sure that you remind them about sunscreen, just water, something very simple, but just make sure that they're drinking water and eating. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I know I've used an emergency contact form through Google Forms. It was super easy. I had the kids fill it out before, and that way I have an Excel sheet that I can access so quick. It's in my drive, so no matter where I'm at, maybe I'm not rehearsing at my own house or something, maybe I'm somewhere else, that I have access to it. And I would also share it maybe with your band director and someone else, so that it's multiple people who have access to it. So if something emergent were to happen, that you're covered, you can get help to the student. But definitely other emergencies, that could come up, or contingencies, I'll say. If a kid gets kicked out, that your expectation is that they're going to log back in or something. Not that that's quite emergent, but it is something that's a contingency plan. Like, hey, let's say my stuff I'm hosting the Zoom and it goes out, like, just everybody know maybe to check your Remind or your GroupMe or your band app or whatever it is that you use to communicate with your students to get back on. But if they know that already, it just makes it 10 times easier. So all of those things are super helpful, hopefully, for you and your Zoom meetings. And we want to wish you the best of luck. And if you ever need any help, we are willing to help you in any way that we can. Just email us anytime, and we'll be happy to walk you through the process or do a mock Zoom with you. If you're needing that, we are totally accessible to you. Do you guys have anything else you want to add?
Just remember, there's no right or wrong answer for any of this. We're all still figuring it out. So just be positive, and just the worst thing that happens is you try something and, okay, that didn't work, let's try something else.
Yeah, just be realistic with yourself and the students. The fact that they got out of bed is the achievement sometimes, and reward them, and just be happy that they're able to be at the rehearsal, and know that we will all get back to what we love soon. But for right now, just make the best out of it. Have fun, and make sure your students are having fun.
All right, you guys, thank you so much, and we wish you luck. Bye.
Bye.